Welcome to Pregnant Possibilities. I'm Jeanne Schumacher, and my partner is Debra Shapiro, a board-certified OB-GYN, and together we created a program called the Pregnancy Advantage. Our objective is to help women to get their bodies pregnant ready and also provide support if you're experiencing trouble conceiving. And exciting news, we are currently working on the Baby Advantage program, which is going to begin at conception and take you through your first year. So today on our show, we're going to be discussing folates, toxins, and microwaves and the impact on you and your future children. So Debra, how you doing today?
Excellent, Jeanne. It's always great to see you, and it's great to be live with everyone on this Pregnancy Advantage page. I wanted to say that today we're going to be answering a question, first of all, from one of our listeners, which is very exciting. And this is from Allison. Allison, I hope you're there. Allison asks if we would talk about the difference between folic acid and methylfolate supplementation. And I have been looking at this for a while because people that I really care about, like Michael Greger, has been saying that folic acid is more dangerous and that we should be taking the methylfolate form. And other places that I look at, like the American College of OB-GYN and even Brenda Davis in her book, Becoming Vegan. And I've looked at it in a number of different places now, and the whole issue of something called MTHFR mutations and all of that. And so I think I have the right answer for everybody. So hold on to this. So folate is actually B9. It's vitamin B9. This is folate actually is a group of chemically complicated substances, and they are very important because they supply the body with methyl groups. And if you know anything about epigenetics, you know it's all about putting on epigenetics is when you actually change gene expression by attaching a methyl group to the DNA. Folate is important for actually creating DNA, some of the building blocks of DNA. So it's very important for our blood cells, it's very important for our nerves, it's very important for everything. I think some of the concern about extra folate, it is a water-soluble vitamin, so most of it just goes out in your pee, but there's been some concern about taking too much of this sort of artificial form, this form called folic acid, that it could build up in your body and actually increase your risk of cancer, because if it makes things grow, if it helps cells to have their building blocks to grow, then possibly there could be too much. So I'll address that. But it's very important. And what we found, I don't know exactly when it was, maybe it was in the 40s or 50s, but there was a time before foods were supplemented and fortified with folic acid where there was an increase in neural tube defects like spina bifida, problems with the brain and spinal cord of the fetus not forming properly. So foods started to be fortified, and they were fortified with folic acid. And we saw a decrease in neural tube defects significantly. So now it could be that this was a time when people were also not eating a lot of folate-rich foods, greens and beans, and even oranges. So maybe people don't always know when they're going to be pregnant or when they are pregnant, or very early part of pregnancy when these parts of the fetus are forming. So their folate levels could be low at those times because they didn't know. And it's possible that vegans, and especially people in our program who are going to be taught to eat a very rich, varied diet with, of course, lots of beans and greens and oranges and all kinds of fruits and vegetables that are high in folate, wouldn't even get close to a deficiency state. But that being said, the studies that show that folic acid supplementation decreased the risk of a neural tube defect were done with folic acid. And folic acid is absorbed very well by your body. And actually, we talk about folic acid equivalents. And so one dietary folate equivalent, or DFE, 1 microgram of food folate, is actually equal to 0.6 micrograms of folic acid from supplements, because the folic acid is so well, or from fortified foods, because it's so well absorbed. So that being said, so let's look at some different recommendations. ACOG, the American College of OB-GYN, and I am a board-certified OB-GYN. I don't agree with everything they say because I don't agree with having 3 milk products a day when you're pregnant. And I don't agree with having 2 servings of fish a week when you're pregnant because of all the contaminants in fish. And I think you can get your omega-3s elsewhere. And I think the whole dairy industry is very powerful. And I can't really understand why they keep pushing dairy, but there you go. But calcium is important too. But with regard to ACOG's requirements and recommendations for folic acid to prevent a neural tube defect, they recommend that women take 400 micrograms of folic acid before they get pregnant, and 600 micrograms during pregnancy, and 500 when they're breastfeeding. Now, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, that's another group. They don't get money from any big businesses. They just look at the science. The U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, they're very highly regarded group of scientists, and they believe that all women who are planning to become or capable of becoming pregnant take a daily supplement containing somewhere between 400 and 800 micrograms of folic acid, and you start at least a month before conception, and you continue through the first 2 to 3 months. Now, what's interesting is also if you have a child, you already have a child who has a neural tube defect, they're going to want you to take much more folic acid to prevent that from happening in the future. It's up to 4 grams a day. And that is a very high level, and I don't recommend anyone take that unless they're being told to, and they're being observed, and they're doing it for a reason. The other reason you might need to take more folic acid is if you have epilepsy and you are on an anti-seizure medication, because an anti-epileptic medication is going to interfere, is going to upregulate all the enzymes in your liver that are going to be detoxifying all these other things that you're putting in your body. And so you actually need more as well in those cases too. So if you're on any medication, we certainly recommend that you must see your doctor first before you try to get pregnant, so that you know that the medications you're on are safe, and that if you can get onto different medications that are safer, that you could do that ahead of time. So that being said, I did want to read from one of my favorite sources, which is, you can see, Becoming Vegan, which I recommend everybody get if they're going to be pregnant or want to get pregnant. And even if you're not, if you're just going to try to be a healthy vegan, because it is just incredible. It's by Brenda Davis and Vicente Molina, and it's a wonderful book. And there's an express edition, and there's the edition more for professionals, and I don't care which one you get. But this is what she said: folic acid, yes or no? Based on human studies to date, it appears that the benefits of taking limited amounts of folic acid in supplement form in early pregnancy outweigh the risks. Relevant research confirms that it makes sense to take 400 micrograms of folic acid during the month or so before becoming pregnant and throughout pregnancy to reduce the risk of neural tube defects in the infant, and perhaps the risk of autism, cleft lip, and cleft palate. With an additional 200 micrograms of folate from her diet, a pregnant vegan easily meets the RDA, the recommended daily amount. Alternatively, a diet that includes plenty of beans, greens, and oranges complemented by enriched or whole grains can provide the entire RDA during pregnancy of 600 micrograms of folate, as noted above. Thus, supplemental folic acid may not always be necessary. In summary, both options can work well in supplying adequate folate. But, however, studies to establish effectiveness in preventing neural tube defects have been conducted only with folic acid. So that's the issue. That's why I can't come out and just say, of course, just take folate. I just can't, because we just haven't done those studies to prove that the taking folate, that form, is going to be as effective. I'm sorry, I just don't have that data. It just isn't done. So that's why we all just go with this. Now, I know that people some women have this, and they carry a mutation in a gene called the MTHFR mutation, and there are 2 of them that are very common. I've looked this up extensively, the March of Dimes and other sources, and really it's sort of a myth that you have to take, that if you have this MTHFR mutation, that you're not going to be able to degrade or to use the folate in folic acid. And it's just not really true. So everywhere I look, it's not like everywhere I look, they're always saying, oh, but if you have the MTHFR, it's just not an issue. Whether you have an MTHFR mutation or not, I would eat a high folate diet with lots of beans and greens and berries and spinach, especially. And you can look the amount of folate is, you can find in tables. They have them in this book. This is one of the other reasons that I recommend her book, because she has incredible tables of lists of food with all kinds of nutrients, every nutrient that you might need, and including things like choline, which a lot of people don't talk about. And I think I've said it all. I think I've covered the topic. One other thing is about the risk of cancer, because I've heard this from a number of sources, and there is some data that possibly if you take high amounts, if you take extra folic acid, and we're not recommending that you take high folic acid for your whole life. We're saying for a short period of time before you get pregnant and during your pregnancy. just a little extra. But yes, if you have to take large amounts, I mean, if someone had a child with a neural tube defect and decided that they wanted to have, 8 children, and every time they had to take 4 milligrams of folic acid, I mean, that might be too much. And certainly we don't recommend that men take folic acid supplementation. It's interesting because it can increase the risk of prostate cancer. So, but we're just talking about risk benefit, and it looks like the benefits outweigh the risk because of the absolute real reduction in something horrific for babies, which is a neural tube defect.
Well, Debra, I think Allison, I think you've answered her question. So thank you. Debra, as always, you are right on, spot on. But before we jump into our next topic, what are you doing? We haven't had a chance to catch up. So what are you doing?
Well, starting, I guess, a couple of years ago, I started this a new business because I was a practicing OB-GYN, full service OB-GYN, delivering lots of babies, getting up every night. And it was a pretty wonderful job. I was really blessed to have that opportunity to be with women during that time. And I just loved every moment of it. I really did. Although my motto was always, I'll sleep when I'm dead, but it's not a good motto. Do not have that motto, but it is the OB-GYN's motto. So started coaching, and I love coaching. So I'm a whole plant food health coach, and I have my business, A New View of Food. And there actually is a little ebook called Why Eat Plants. So if you go to my website, www.anewviewofffood.com, just sign up and get my little free ebook of Why Eat Plants. And if you'd like to just have a complimentary session with me just to see what coaching might be like, please just reach out. You can make an appointment on the website as well, on Calendly. And I'd love to talk to you. I love to help women, especially women who are sort of ethical vegans or want to be or interested in that, but they don't know how to really make that into a whole plant food diet, into one that's going to help them thrive for the rest of their lives. And now we know about epigenetics, so really changing the epigenome so that future generations can be even healthier. So please reach out. And what about you, Jeanne? I think you're doing something new also, right?
Well, I'm back at Plant City in Providence, Rhode Island. So if you've not heard about it, it's a plant-based market hall. They took a huge warehouse, gutted it, and it's now, I think, 4 or 5 plant-based restaurants, but the food is just absolutely exquisite. Now they moved me upstairs, and so I'm in the big room so we can social distance people, and I'm doing lectures and cooking classes, and you can find the next class will be October 17th, and it'll be in Providence, Rhode Island. Love to have you join us. You can find information on simplyplantbased.net under events.
Your classes are amazing because I got to watch you on your YouTube channel do a class, and it was really fantastic. And I've worked with other chefs who do classes, but you are phenomenal as a teacher.
That's my trade, is I'm a teacher, and I'm going to teach you how to cook and give you all the tips and tricks. So, and you get, lectures. I think the lecture is, we just had the first lecture of what is whole food plant-based. Now the next one in the series is how to begin, and then tips and tricks. Down the road, Plant City is going to be doing online classes. So I'm very excited about that. So, but I love doing the in-class, in live, there's nothing beats going to this. And then after I'm done, you can have a meal at Plant City because, oh my God, the food is incredibly exquisite. All right, let's talk some toxins because I go crazy about these toxins. This is one of my passions, is to help women to get the toxins out of their life. And one of them we're going to talk about is called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These toxins get into the food chains, they get into our environment, they get into us. And a lot of these things, there's 2 different types of chemicals. Okay, there's fat soluble and water soluble. And if it's water soluble, you're going to be peeing it out. If it's fat soluble, hey, guess what? It's rolling right into your fat cells. And our fat cells become these little toxic dumps. And so we need to get rid of these toxic dumps, especially before you get pregnant. This is mission critical, and one of the big pieces in our program about teaching you how to get rid of the toxins. Now, you're not going to be perfect. So just right off the bat, I'm just going to say to you, get over it. You have to be able to do the best you possibly can and hopefully have the healthiest child possible, because I'm seeing the effect, I used to, in the classroom. After 35 years of teaching, it's just absolutely incredible how, first of all, how toxic our children have become, number one, but how easy it is to clean yourself out, clean your body out, so that you can have hopefully a complication-free pregnancy and have the healthiest possible baby. So that's one of the big pieces about this. So we're going to be talking about these aromatic hydrocarbons, okay, PAHs as they're called. They're a class of chemical that occur naturally in coal, crude oil, gasoline, and they're produced when oil, gas, wood, garbage, tobacco, any of these things are burned, okay? So the problem is these little particles that come out into the atmosphere, they can bind and form small particles in the air. And then you get also high temperature, cooking will form these PAHs, in meat and other foods. So, we just want to make sure that you are avoiding these kinds of things. So Debra, take it away.
Well, there are a number of chemicals, and some of them are carcinogens, that are created when foods are cooked at very high temperature. They're not all carcinogens, because I think advanced glycation end products may not be actually carcinogens, but they certainly contribute to disease, and they're inflammatory. So polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, and heterocyclic amines, and acrylamide and AGEs. These are all compounds that are created when food is cooked at high temperature. So the way we used to like our food, like fried, is a big no-no when you're trying to eliminate these or reduce your exposure to them. These are in the air. So even if, God forbid, if you have to work at a job where you are frying things like frying French fries and frying chicken, this is not good. It's not good. And so they are dangerous, and some of them really are carcinogens as well. So acrylamide, I remember hearing about acrylamide because it's something that we think about with French fries. And I've always been a little nervous about French fries after learning about acrylamide. So it's much better to learn how to cook foods using wet heat. You'll definitely reduce the amount of these compounds that are made from combustion. So steaming and boiling, as opposed to deep fat frying and grilling and broiling. And certainly when you're eating food that's been grilled, I know this is interesting because my own wife and my mother-in-law also loves things to be charred and doesn't mind when things have a char on them. This is not so good. So, one of the times that you really want to pay attention is one thing if you're 60, it doesn't matter that much. But when you're trying to create the optimum for your baby to develop within, you want to just make yourself as healthy as possible. And that's really what this is all about, because we want to allow the embryo from the moment of implantation, and even before, because some things are happening to your germ cells. When you are exposed to some of these compounds, you're doing DNA, just like any of these endocrine disrupting chemicals, you can be affecting your germ cells as well. Some things that are going on with you might have been something due to what happened to your grandmother, because it changed the DNA of your mom's ovaries, which then had something to do with you, right? So these things get carried on. So we really have to do your part to make the future generations healthier. Think about making not only your children healthier, but your grandchildren healthier. And that means as much as possible, when you're thinking about getting pregnant for this, a year or more if you have it, to reduce your exposure to all of these compounds, the heterocyclic amines, the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, the advanced glycation end products, and acrylamide.
You are always spot on. So Debra, I'm going to ask you to go like this.
Oh, hot.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
That generates heat, right?
Yeah.
That's going to lead us right into our next topic. Microwaves. Okay. I have to tell you, I'm not a fan of microwaves. Now, I know, okay, like every home has a microwave.
We don't have one.
No?
We don't have one. No, we don't use it.
Almost every home.
That's quick.
Yours and mine, okay, has a microwave. And I get it. Microwave cooking, easy, quick. But, I'm still out on if it's safe. Here's the problem. So microwave ovens use food cooks food using waves of energy. And it's similar to radio waves. There's this whole electromagnetic spectrum that's out there, okay? And our eyes can see only a very, very, very tiny piece of this electromagnetic spectrum. And it's there for us in terms of evolution. Think about this, that we can recognize that ripe strawberry down the road and can see it. That's the whole point of us being able to see color, okay, so that we can recognize ripe things in our environment and notice the subtle differences. You know, you can tell whether something's ripe or just about ripe based upon the color. Okay, anyway, back to the electromagnetic spectrum and microwaves. So when you start to do this to the molecules inside, you're agitating these molecules, okay? And here's the problem. When you start to do this, it really only affects, these microwaves usually affect things that are asymmetrical. What do I mean by that? I'm so glad you asked. Like these molecules that have a positive and negative side, like a water molecule. A water molecule, and I've been studying water for over 25 years. I think it's absolutely fascinating and an amazing substance. So when you are heating this up, you've got one end that's positively charged and the other end that's negatively charged. And it's selective, these microwaves, just for these kind of things. So this agitation creates this molecular friction, which causes the food to heat up. And if you remember back when microwaves first came out, they didn't have that little rotating pad on the bottom. And on the bottom, you know, you just put the food in there and you would have these pockets. It would heat up really hot on one side and then you'd take a bite and it's like cold, stone cold. And then the next step was to have these revolving plates, you know, that you could add to that. And then of course now all microwaves pretty much come with this rotating plate on the bottom because it's rotating the food. Hopefully the microwaves are hitting it equally, so it's heating it up equally. But the problem is that the friction causes substantial damage to surrounding molecules, okay? Often tearing them apart and forcefully deforming them. So the scientific name for this is called structural isomerism. Okay, fine. So let's talk about little things. You know, there was a study published in the Journal of Pediatrics, and they started looking at frozen human milk, you know, because in intensive care nurseries. So they tested 22 frozen human milk samples to test them for this activity and these antibodies, heating it up, the samples 30 seconds on either low or high power setting. So the breast milk microwaved at high temperatures was found to have greater E. coli growth, 18 more times more than the uncontrolled, the unmicrowaved breast milk. So microwaving it at low temperatures also decreased the lysosome activity and promoted growth of harmful bacteria in babies. And of course, you know, there's always the issue of what you're heating the stuff up in microwaves, you know, any kind of plastics or things like that. If you're wrapping it in plastics, you can create a lot of carcinogens just from what you're, you know, heating it up with. So if you're going to be using microwaves, please at least use glass and put a paper towel on top of it. But here's something else that I thought was absolutely fascinating, that microwaves can change the makeup of your blood. So they found in a Swiss clinical study that researchers found blood changes in individuals who consumed microwave milk and vegetables. So they had 8 participants in the study who ate a series of prepared foods in different ways, including food heated in a microwave. And the results showed that the red blood cells decreased while the white cell levels increased, along with cholesterol levels. So, and they talked about this non-ionizing radiation of the microwave that can affect changes in your blood and your heart rate. And they had this woman, this was a lawsuit, this was a while ago, it happened in Oklahoma, concerning the hospital use of a microwave oven to warm blood that was needed for a transfusion. And the woman died. And so, you know, it made it apparent that this person, you know, that the blood was changed, that the microwave had literally changed the bloods. So we also have talks about how microwaves can change your heart rate. And so due to the frequency radiation of the microwave ovens, there was a study conducted by Magda Havis of Trent University, and she found the levels of radiation emitted by the microwave affect both the heart rate and the heart rate variability. Now, here's the thing. The levels that were changed were within federal guidelines, safety guidelines, but they tend to cause immediate and dramatic changes in the heart rate. I'm sorry. Is there any acceptable levels of changing your heart rate? Anyway. Also, Dr. Lita Lee reported in the Lancet Journal that microwaving baby formulas converted certain trans amino acids into their synthetic cis isomers. So it makes it not biologically active. So it's bad enough that babies aren't being breastfed, but if they're given baby formula, it's made even more toxic by microwaving it, okay? And then there was Dr. Hans Ehrlich Hertel. He published a research paper indicating that food cooked in microwave ovens could pose a greater risk to health than food cooked by conventional means. So his small but well-controlled study showed the degenerative force produced in microwave ovens and the food processed in them. And the conclusion showed that microwave cooking changed the nutrients in the food and the changes that took place in the blood's participant that could cause deterioration in the human system. So, you know, I guess I would say, because it was a small study, I would love to see this replicated or done again, you know, because I think we've kind of just accepted the widespread use of microwaves. You know, microwaves have just become part of, you know, you go to check into a hotel and you've got a microwave in your hotel room, and, you know, just ways to heat up food and stuff like that. So I just say, you know, no, I don't want to wait for all the data to come out. Sorry, I don't. Especially when you've got microwaves, you know, for little people, because little kids love to see and watch the stuff spinning on the plate, you know, and moving around. Even if you're just standing next to it, you know, there's going to be some leakage. There's going to be some leakage. So I don't know. Debra, you know, I just say no. Just say no, you know.
Well, we have alternatives, right? You have alternatives.
We do have alternatives, and I love the mini hot logic,
Right.
and I use that all the time. So what I do is I batch cook, usually on the weekends. I batch cook, and what I do is I put them into glass dishes, and then after I have my morning smoothie, then I put my glass dishes into the mini hot logic. So whenever I'm ready and I feel hungry, then I can go down and have a meal that is quite hot, you know, and it's gently warmed to the point of not boiling, obviously, but it's hot enough that I'm like, you know, blowing on it before I eat my soup. So, or any one of the foods, you know, in there. Obviously, the more liquid it has, the more time it's going to need to heat it up. But I just put it in after I have my morning smoothie, and I come back and, you know, for lunchtime, and, you know, leave it on there is also for dinner. You know, so it makes it just an easy way to have a hot meal at any time, especially in the workplace. You know, instead of having to try and battle for using the microwave, you know, in the office, here you go. You can just put this by your desk and heat your food up gently.
Mm-hmm.
So
excellent. And now with the thing, you know, we have the Instant Pot, and we have. I think the use of the microwave is probably going to be going down generally. So I think we're done. But there was yesterday when we were on the exam room podcast, there was a comment that was interesting, and I just thought maybe we could just take a couple of minutes if we still have it. Is that okay?
1 minute, go.
1 minute. Well, I don't know if we can do it in 1 minute, and maybe we should tackle it next time. But the question was, since we've made such a kind of a fuss about needing to improve your weight to get down to a normal weight to improve your fertility, the comment was, how would we deal with the idea of body positivity and the importance of women feeling positive about their bodies, and how do we handle that? And I would just want to ask you, because you're someone, I mean, I've never been morbidly obese. I've never had 100 pounds to lose or 90 pounds or any of that. But you've actually experienced this. So I wondered how you felt about, I mean, we don't want to be shaming anyone. We're only talking about improving your health. But how do you do that?
It's a delicate dance. It's a delicate dance because, you know, we've got all these magazines screaming at us, you know, these pencil thin models, and this is the, you know, Barbie and everything else, this whole idea of we have to be this perfect size. And I think you kind of have to let that go, you know, that if you are obese and you want to get pregnant, well, the best thing that you can do is lose that weight before you get pregnant, you know, without shame. You know, you're doing this for the right reason, because if you want to become a mother, okay, you're going to have to take the back seat for the rest of your life. You know, you're not going to be the center, you know, the princess anymore. You're taking the back seat, your mom. Okay. So this becomes one of the first steps in becoming a mom, I think, because you have to give up that it's all about me anymore, because it's not about you anymore. It's about that baby that you want to bring into this world. And so you need to focus a lot upon that what you're doing. And I think this becomes more important that you know your why, that I want to lose weight so I can have the healthiest possible baby. So I think that's the approach that you and I both take this from. We never ever shame anybody. We take you where you are and say, okay, when do you want to get pregnant? What is your timeline? Hopefully you connect with us before you are thinking about getting pregnant, because if you're having issues, I mean, we can help you there too. But if you're having issues, the best time to deal with those issues is before you want to try and conceive. Because once you start that, shields down and you're on that it's a very emotional roller coaster, that you want to have, a child and you want to get pregnant. And if you're not getting pregnant each month that happens, it's like, and it's very emotional. It's, oh my gosh. And then you feel like, I can't do this. My body's not, for whatever reasons, whatever the issues are. And it's a very, very emotional roller coaster, and especially before you start down that in vitro fertilization rabbit hole, because wow. Just ask anybody who's been down that rabbit hole. First of all, how expensive it is and how pleasant it is. No, it's not. I mean, hopefully the end result is a baby, and that's what you want. Okay. But if we can take care of and heal the body before, whether it's from obesity, whether it's from toxins, whether it's from whatever your issues are, like we're doing things now at 2:30. We're talking about women's health. And today our topic is on UTIs and interstitial cystitis, another huge topic for women. But we talked about PCOS, we talked about endometriosis already, irregular periods. And these are just some of the issues women are dealing with, that are trying to get pregnant, and obesity is one of them. But no, we don't ever talk about fat shaming in any way, shape, or form. But you have to just make the decision that, you want to have the healthiest possible baby. And we talk a lot about the obesogens and the issues with those. So I think that's a big, big thing for women to understand. And the more that you have weight on you, the more difficult it's going to be for you to get pregnant. So there is that sweet spot, and we want to help you to get to that sweet spot as quickly as possible, because that's what's going to help you to achieve your goal, which is a baby, and hopefully a healthy baby. Because honestly, I know you've seen it for coming out of the chute, but I've seen it, and if you look at some of the studies that have been done on like umbilical cords, where they looked at the toxins, in these babies, it's like, are you kidding me? So whatever toxin load that you have, that's what your baby's going to be hanging out with for the next 9 months until they come out of the chute and they start pooping. Okay. And then they can get rid of some of the toxins themselves. But until that time, they're like kind of a little prisoner in there, and they're, whatever you're doing, eating, drinking, that's what they're getting. So you want to make it the healthiest possible so that you can create, what a miracle, honestly. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, I experienced my own birth, but I can't even imagine like catching them as they come out of the chute, and just seeing that miracle.
Well, really just the power that women have, really being able to see the power, the spouse is there. I know that now the trans men can give birth, and that's amazing. But for the majority, these are women who are doing it, and the men are standing by. Some of them are like behind the curtain. Some of them are, barely able to stay in the room. Some of them are vomiting. But the woman is there, and she is a power, just the most powerful creature you can imagine. And that was incredible to witness. But I'm hoping that we satisfied the woman who was questioning us yesterday. We deal with the issues of weight the way we would deal with any kind of medical issues like diabetes or using alcohol or anything. It's just, and also some of it is pre-programmed from what your grandmother ate or what she was exposed to or what your mom was exposed to. The fact that you are obese is not just your choice, right? This is just something that may be related to food, the obesogens that we talked about, the BPA, the parabens, right? So,
but also food runs in family too.
Absolutely. That is, the recipes are there. Absolutely. I mean, if you grew up liking fried stuff, then you eat fried stuff, then it's not going to keep you slender. It's just not. So very rare for people who can, that have a metabolism to deal with that, especially as they get older. So.
All right. So Debra, I will see you at 2:30. We are going to be discussing today UTIs and interstitial cystitis. So
yes.
hope you can join us there. We're going to go live from Simply Plant Based. And for those of you still around, we have a gift for you. So if you go to pregnantready.net, there are the top 3 things that we think you should be doing to get your body pregnant ready. All right, we'll see you at 2:30.
Bye-bye.